Hi, welcome to our Module 32 on basic motivation and concepts. So today we're going to talk about motivation. What motivates you? Why are we motivated? How are we motivated? So what is motivation? Motivation is this need or desire to energize our behavior and to get us to do something. It's what gets you out of bed in the morning. It's what gets you to work or to class. There are some perspectives, different theories on motivation. The instinct theory, this idea that we have genetically predisposed behaviors that get us going every day. Drive reduction theory. We respond to these inner pushes and the outer pulls. So the pulls in our environment and the pushes inside of us. So like a push would be hunger and a pull would be the smell of fresh baked cookies. Arousal theory is that the right levels of stimulation are required for all of us, that we each have our optimum level of arousal that we like. That's why some people enjoy being busy where others don't. And then Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so that looks at how some things are much more important than others to fulfill first. So let's jump into instincts. Darwin came up with this idea of instincts when he was observing animals and how some animals have these fixed learned patterns of behavior throughout their entire species. So certain songbirds sing, certain birds build nests in a very specific way. So those seem to be instinctual in that they seem to be hardwired into the system. There are some genes that predispose this behavior. It's not necessarily learned, it's just there. Now, we have the same motive, but we have different wiring. So yeah, we do have needs that seem to be instinctual. The need to be around other people, the need to find shelter. But we don't have necessarily the same inherent instincts to build houses. Not all of us can build a house. Like, I can't build houses. I'm not allowed to have a hammer in my house because I might break something. So my husband has assured me that whatever I need fixed, he'll be happy to fix it. I'm just not that good with certain things. So not every human has the same instinctual drive for the same behaviors. So instincts, the instinct drive may be a little less in humans, but more so in other species. Now, drives and incentives. So drive reduction theory suggests that we are in a state of tension, a drive, and that motivates us to satisfy that need. So I am thirsty. I have this desire and need for water. And that's a tense state to be. And you know that when you're super thirsty, you need something to drink. And that motivates me to get up and go get a glass of water. So I have my water and I can take a drink. And now that need is suppressed. The idea of being hangry is based on this drive reduction theory, is that we are so hungry that we can't think about anything else, and we get angry, and that motivates us to go, because anger's motivating. Anger's a very motivating emotion, and that pushes us to go seek out food. And then we seek out food, and now we have this balance restored, which is called homeostasis. Homeostasis is this idea that our body needs balance. So if we are out of balance, so we need food, we don't have any, and so we need to balance that out. And incentive is anything that pushes our behavior or pulls our behavior. So incentives in our environment: food, water, companionship, connection. Those are all incentives to engage in our environment. So here's another example of drive reduction theory. We have this need for food and water. It drives us with a thirst or hunger, and then the behavior is to eat or drink. The arousal theory, and I find this really fascinating, that we are motivated to engage in behaviors that increase or decrease arousal levels without reward or punishment. Little kids, 2-year-olds, walk up to 15 to 20,000 steps per day. They don't have a job. They're not going to school. What are they doing? They're literally running around their environment, engaging in their environment for the sheer arousal factor. When they get bored, their arousal levels increase. When they're overstimulated, their arousal levels decrease. High arousal levels motivate us to engage in things. Lower levels will encourage us to disengage. So, or vice versa. Arousal levels change per person. So I don't know about you, but I can't just sit on the beach for the rest of my life and do nothing. Like if all my needs were met and I had everything I needed, could I just sit and hang out? And the answer is no. I am one of those people that needs to be doing a lot of things. I need a high level of arousal. If I don't have enough to do, I will stand and spin in my living room. I have a hard time focusing. And I think a lot of people do. Now, if I have too much going on, then I get overloaded and I shut down. So it's just finding that optimum level of arousal that is good for me, that makes me comfortable, and works for me. So everyone needs to find their optimum level of arousal. Some people would much prefer sitting on the beach for the rest of their lives and doing nothing. The Yerkes-Dodson law is this really cool idea that our performance increases to a point, and then it decreases based on our levels of arousal. So, for example, if you have to fold a bunch of laundry, a cup of coffee or a cup of tea with some caffeine in it might help you because it'll increase that level of arousal. Having high levels of arousal help when we're doing low tasks that don't require much thought or effort. Now, if I have to take apart a watch and I have all these little pieces and I have to make sure I can't lose any, I am not going to drink a bunch of coffee before I do that. That task that has a lot of that has a lot to do with it, it has a high performance, you're better off with a lower level of arousal. So a difficult task, lower level of arousal. An easy task, higher level of arousal. And so making sure that your level of arousal is matched to the task at hand. Anybody that has drank too much coffee knows that there are some things that you can't do. Also, some of us know that some of us can't function without having a little bit of caffeine or a little bit of motivation in order to get the easy task done. Now, Maslow proposed a hierarchy of needs, and I want to point out that this top row here was not originally Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This was added relatively recently, and that isn't his. The original hierarchy pyramid is here. And it starts out with these physiological needs, okay, that we need our physiological needs met. We need hunger and thirst. When you're hungry and thirsty and you don't have food and water, you know that nothing else matters at that point, and that is what we need to fulfill. Now, once you have food and water, now we can work on safety needs. Do you have a place to live? Do you have a place to stay? Do you have a place where you feel safe and stable? So if you have food and water and you have a place where you feel stable, now we can work on the belonging and love needs, finding companionship, finding relationships. It's very difficult to have a relationship when you don't know where you're living and you don't know what you're eating or if you're going to eat. Once we have food and water and we have a place to live and we have friends, now we can work on our self-esteem needs. And this is building up our need for achievement and competence and independence. So at work, having a job that engages your abilities so that you can feel good about yourself, get recognition from others, get to recognize yourself for what you've done. And then we can move on to self-actualization needs. And self-actualization needs is these need to fill and to live up to our potential. So you'll see CEOs who walk into companies that aren't doing very well, and they build that company up to where it's functioning better than it ever has, and then they say, great, I am moving on, the company is working well and it's in good hands, have a good day, and they move off to the next project. Self-actualization needs, this is living up to our potential. We don't stay here. A lot of us will travel throughout this. We don't necessarily get to our self-actualization. We get to our full potential and we stay there. That, for some of us who have higher needs for arousal, need to keep doing things, we will go find another job and go back for this need for achievement. And maybe we'll oscillate between these two. Maybe we'll get to self-transcendence needs, which is the need to find meaning in yourself and beyond. And then maybe we found meaning, and then we come back down to our living at our top potential. And maybe then we go back to taking a class. Walking into a classroom that you've never had and taking a class that you've never taken before, well, you go back to achievement and working on self-esteem and self-efficacy. So these are meant to move through. Hopefully you would only move through the top 3. But right now, some people are dropping down to losing loved ones or breaking up relationships. And then some people are losing their homes and their safety. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs is this idea that we really do need to fulfill the bottom needs before we can work on the top. It's very difficult. If you don't have food and water, you're definitely not working on self-actualization. So here is a graph for you to look over the instinct theory, drive theory, arousal theory, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and the big ideas out of each one. It is found in your book, and you can look those over. Thank you very much, and I will see you on the next recording.